But unfortunately, that group fell apart because the two girls decided they didn't want to be a part of the group anymore because they weren't singing lead vocals. You know, the whole
the ego
girl group drama that goes, it just goes with the territory, I guess.
Well, I appreciate you doing this. This podcast is about you and your journey in music. And I want to talk to you obviously about the Grammy nominated record.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me and taking the time out actually for this.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. I did see are you from Memphis, born and raised in Memphis?
Originally, yeah, born and raised in Memphis, a Southern girl. Yeah.
Okay. I was telling Brandon here a second ago that my family and I'm originally from San Diego and we just moved to Nashville like less than a year ago in February.
Oh,
of last
wow. Wow.
So,
why did you choose Nashville? I mean, it's a fantastic city, but I'm always curious.
Just, we've heard a bunch of good things. Actually, through this podcast, I met a bunch of people that were like, kept talking about Nashville. I'm like, huh.
Yeah. It has
a pandemic. There's school open in Nashville. Let's see what this is about.
Yeah. Well, it's a great city. It's beautiful, and they've done so much to it in the last few years. It's just really thriving, especially in the music industry.
Oh yeah, I moved here thinking it was a country town, and no, I mean, obviously, yes, there's country here, but not to the. I thought it was like only country music, but it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all different genres are being created here, which is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it has really diversified in like the last 10 years. I would say has really come along. I mean, when I was in Tennessee, it was pretty much country, just straight country,
right?
You know. And then I went to college actually 40 minutes from Nashville, so I spent a lot of time driving from school with friends to go out and stuff like that in Nashville, and it was nothing like it is today.
Okay. So, where did you go? Middle Tennessee?
No, I went to Austin Peay State University in Clarksville, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. See, a lot of my friends chose Middle Tennessee, but I didn't. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head, aside from like Vanderbilt and maybe another one. But you said 40 minutes outside, so it's like, oh, maybe it's Murfreesboro.
Oh, well, see, again, I had a friend that went to Murfreesboro as well.
Well, I think that's where Middle Tennessee University is.
Yes.
Yeah, so
but isn't there like there's a community college though there or something?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I've only driven by the college and I'm like, oh, that's where Middle Tennessee University is.
Yeah.
But when you said out 40 minutes away, I figured maybe it was there. So
yeah,
I obviously don't know a whole lot.
Yeah, well, you're gonna learn. But like Clarksville, it was about usually, I guess in the evening it was about, because we always drove up in the evenings to go out. So it was 40, it was under an hour.
Okay. So, that's cool. Well, we're about to have a tornado here, so you're not missing that much.
I don't miss those. We had a lot of those in Memphis growing up. I tell my kids nowadays too, I'm like, you're so lucky. You're so lucky. Because they like, because I live in LA now, and they go, what about the earthquakes and this and that? I'm like, don't happen nearly as much. Okay. No, like you have nothing to worry about.
The last person I just interviewed somebody a little while ago that was in LA, and they were in Nashville when that big one hit right before, then COVID happened and the bomb happened. Like it was all this terrible stuff happened in Nashville, like back to back to back to back. And then she's like, yeah, that's why I didn't want to move there. And I moved here not really realizing how many warnings there are, tornado warnings. I came from California where everyone's like, oh my gosh, there's gonna be an earthquake. I'm like, I lived there for 37 years. I experienced them, but I never saw. I mean, luckily I wasn't in it, San Francisco when the bridge fell, or Northridge when that big one hit. But I mean, they're so few and far between that it's not like here. I've been here for less than a year, and we've already experienced like so many tornado watches and warnings. It's different.
It's so crazy. I tell I can remember quite a few that were really scary when I was younger, and I always like explain them, and they go, really? That happened? I'm like, yeah, it did. Like, seriously.
Like I could hear the wind, like,
howling right now.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I do not miss that. I don't think I would move back, unfortunately.
Oh. Well, so Memphis, though, there's another huge music city here in Tennessee. Tell me about living there.
Well, I mean, Memphis is just amazing on the music front because there's so many. It's not just it's always been very diverse. Right. I mean, I grew up starting with gospel. My family was heavy into gospel. We were going to church many times a week, and we had our own gospel choir and all that stuff. But it's really heavy into also jazz and blues and, you know, all of that. And that's just amazing too, to be around and all the jazz and blues clubs downtown on Bill Street. And, you know, it was just incredible. It was really rich with a music culture to grow up with. So I am really grateful that I actually had that experience growing up, because honestly, it has really paved what my life is like now. It's created me as a person. And I feel like I owe it to what I do now and all my talents and everything I get up to, you know? So it's an incredible town. And as far as like a lot of history and all of that stuff, I mean, they've kind of done a lot to Memphis too. Not as much as Nashville. Nashville has come along quite a bit more than Memphis. But, you know, I mean, Memphis is a great city. Also, you know, nowadays, you know, really rich with the hip hop culture as well, you know. There's a lot to be said for that city, and, you know, Nashville as well. So it's got a lot of great culture there. So
when we drove here, when we were moving here, we stayed in Memphis. It was, I thought it was such a cool town. I mean, you come over that bridge from Arkansas, you're like in Memphis, Arkansas, and then now you're in Memphis, Tennessee. I was like, what is that? Like,
and you're like downtown, you see the pyramid and like Mud Island. Yeah, it's great.
You go over the Mississippi River. I mean, it was really cool.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you can feel like, I feel different when I'm there, for sure. And I feel like, wow, there's just, there is a lot to learn, because there is so much history there, you know? So I do kind of miss that. I mean, now that I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh, I do kind of miss that.
I'm not trying to convince you to move back.
I know, I'm like reminiscing, going, oh, maybe I could.
Get off the call. You're like, all right, girls, we're moving back to Tennessee.
Never say never. That's what I say.
So you grew up in the church. Was that where you got kind of into music? Was through singing in the choir and gospel choir and stuff? Okay. Yeah.
My family, I mean, everybody in my family is musical in some way. If they don't sing vocally, then they play an instrument, you know? So, you know, and again, being, you know, growing up in the South, going to high schools, the high schools down there were actually really great with music. You know, we had marching bands, and, you know, we used to play instruments and read music and all of that stuff. Not a lot of that happens nowadays, which I'm a little sad about, because I wish that my kids could experience that. I think some of the schools maybe in the Midwest and the South maybe still have a lot of those programs inside the schools, but not so much, you know, up north, you know, and so it's a little sad to know that they won't have that similar experience that I had. That was so amazing. But yeah, you know, I was in the marching band. I played the clarinet.
Oh, cool.
And then, you know, I played the violin for a little bit. I mean, I didn't stick with it, you know, maybe more than a few years, but still I got to have those experiences playing at the basketball games and the football games and the scrimmages and all that stuff. But anyway, so my family, someone played the drums, someone played the guitar, someone was on the trumpet, you know, and then, you know, we had the singers and the harmonizers. And so we were always, if we weren't out singing somewhere, we were singing in the house, you know, so we were very musical.
And did you like go through I mean, you said you're in the marching band and band and stuff like that, but did you then pursue music after high school?
I didn't initially, no. Okay. Because, you know, again, I mean, not again, because I didn't say this, but you get a little kind of limited in your thinking sometimes when you come from smaller towns, because you have these music idols and these entertainment gods that you look up to and you listen to and so on and so forth. But no one really teaches you how the road to success in the music industry in Memphis. You know what I mean? Like they're not teaching that in school. They're teaching you whether you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, or, you know, the most common, you know, careers.
Right.
No one's really explaining to you how to get into the music industry, how to be an actress, what's a voiceover artist, you know, all of these things you don't know about. So though I had the passion to do it, I didn't know how to do it. And, yeah, so I started down a road of thinking I was going to be a doctor. I was going to be a gynecologist. So I was starting the nursing, medical program at Austin P thinking that, oh, I
Oh
was going to
wow.
do this. And yeah, so until I met a girlfriend at school, and
Uh-huh.
she had family in New York, and she used to go visit every summer or something. And I was like, New York? What's that?
Right.
She's like explaining all this stuff, everything they do. And I'm like, oh man, I want to go. And she was like, well, you should come with me one time. And so I remember being so excited. I'd never
Mhm.
been on an airplane. I'd never really been outside of Memphis necessarily, other than going to, college and maybe Nashville a few times. So it was just like, wow, I'm going to New York suddenly. And I remember when we bought our train ticket we bought our Southwest airplane ticket from Nashville to, I think it was Pennsylvania or
Mhm.
Philadelphia, because it didn't go all the way to New York.
Oh, I think you
So
had to take like the train or something
yeah, and
into
then
New
we
York
took the
City.
train from Philadelphia to Penn Station in New York. So that was the route. And so that was my first trip. And then I knew right away, that I wanted to be in New York after that. Like, that was it for me. I mean, I was there. Literally 2 weeks later, like 2-3 weeks max, I went back to Clarksville, wrapped up everything. I was like, okay. And I literally moved.
Really?
Yep.
You stop going, did you quit going to school there and everything?
Yep. I had gone to school I think because I was going year round. I wasn't taking any summers off.
Okay.
So even though I'd only been in school for about 2.5 years, I'd done maybe 3 years or 3.25 worth of courses,
Courses. Got it.
And I was just like, I'm out of here. I know where I need to be. This is my calling. I must go. And literally, I just left.
And when you got to New York, like the calling was, did you want to be in the music business? Is that what
Okay.
happened when you got there? Like,
No, not right away. I got into fashion. I started modeling first,
okay.
and going on auditions and things like that. And things just started to evolve. And that's what I love about that city, because you meet people in your day-to-day transitioning,
Mhm.
on the train, on the sidewalk, in the bodega, you just meet people. And it's so funny because the first 3 months I was like, oh God, everybody's so rude and they don't say excuse me and thank you and hello and all those kind words.
Yeah, that was all new to me when I got here. I'm like, wait, why does everybody like wave to you and like, why is everyone so nice?
Yeah, it's so funny. But really in New York, it's not that people are rude. They're just very straightforward. They're very direct. They're very just like in
They
your
got somewhere
face.
to
And
be. Yeah, it's like
yeah,
in LA, same thing. San Diego, it's like,
it's
okay, I
just
got
like, so
one
I
track
wasn't
mind.
used to that. Yeah. But once I learned that, I was like, oh, wow, and I just meeting people was so much easier. Just you can strike up a conversation and you meet so many people in one day.
Mhm.
And it was just fascinating. So, needless to say, I met a lot of people. I'm a very social person, so I met a lot of people, got invited I would crash auditions and just show up at places. And it was just like, okay, oh, there's an audition. Oh, okay, what time? Okay, I'll have time after, it was that life.
Okay.
And so one of my girlfriends was working with, or she wasn't working, she was friends with one of the people that worked with Timbaland, and they were in the studio one day. And at this point, I met these girls on the train, had connected with some other girls through them, and joined this girl group that was they already had 2 girls and they needed someone else. So
So you're like, I
all of
can
that was
sing.
like,
Let me join your group, or I'll join your group.
I auditioned for the group and I got
Mhm.
in, but literally it was just by, meeting someone on the train,
That's wild.
it's crazy. And so that's how I started doing music, really. And then my friend my friend who was also a model was hanging out at the studio and was like, oh, you guys need to come up and sing for Tim. Come on, So we literally rushed up there
Oh
and
yeah.
sang for Tim, and so that's kind of how that all started.
And then what, he signed you to a publishing deal or something?
Not right away. He didn't sign
Okay.
us right away. It was basically like we sang, and he was like, "Oh yeah, okay, well, come back another day, right?"
Mhm.
So well, that for me is like if you give me 1 inch, I'm gonna take a whole, I'm gonna take
You're like,
it.
come back. Okay, I'll be here tomorrow.
I'll be there. So yeah, we kept going. We kept going and just hanging out and waiting until something happened, and I think the first thing that happened was like, they were working on a song and he was like, oh, can you go sing this background part, And so then that kept happening more and more and more. And then we started to become friends with people around the studio. His engineer and mixer, Jimmy Douglas, became one of our mentors and then became really our manager per se, really. Because he really kind of handled our day-to-day business and really orchestrated the production deal that we did do with Tim and his production company, which was fantastic. So once that started to happen, then we started to write and it just kind of started rolling from there.
And is that so how long did that group last for? And then what happened after that?
Yeah, so that group initially was just me, Michelle, and this other girl. We were all of mixed race. And Donna was her name. And Donna was an Asian girl. And she actually quit the group. So then it was just Michelle and I, who were the lead singers and actually the ones that wrote. So we actually had to hold auditions to find other girls to join the group. Oh. Yeah. So, which we did. We found 2 other girls to join the group. One Colombian girl and one just Hispanic girl from, I forgot where Maite was from. But anyway, we were all just mixed, and Michelle was an Irish girl. And so we were all multi-ethnic, which was fantastic. And yeah, so once we got the 4-girl group together and we started to record more and more songs. And then at one point, Missy came in and wanted to have us change our name to the Mary Jane Girls and market us as that. And that whole thing, we were doing showcases. But unfortunately, that group fell apart because the 2 girls decided they didn't want to be a part of the group anymore because they weren't singing lead vocals. The whole
the ego
girl group drama it just goes with the territory, I guess. Okay. So it left me and Michelle there, and which was fine because we were we were doing all the recording and we were doing all the writing and the studio work and all that stuff. So we just continued to do that, and we made some leeway with some writing and some background parts, and before things just kept falling apart until we were just like, we just got tired after a while, and then we were just like, okay, we want to focus on just being an artist and not just be writers in the studio and not ever grace the stage anymore. So I think that we kind of just like struck out on our own, and I started writing more dance music and club anthems and things like that, which was great because what ended up happening then is a lot of DJs from England and a lot of European DJs got a hold of them, and they started remixing a lot of the songs, and then suddenly my songs were in rotation in Europe. So that was fantastic. Wow. Yeah.
That's amazing. So you would these DJs would just find the records, or you'd send them out to people and then they would do that? Wow. Yep.
So I was sending them out to like different management companies that housed and managed like different DJs, and they'll give them like samples and things like that just to see if they like them, and then if they come up with something and then labels pick it up and it starts spinning and it goes into rotation, then it's fantastic. And I was lucky enough to have 3 songs that actually did that, which was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did that open up the door for you to have like more sessions, or like how did that affect your career?
Yeah. So that affected my career in the sense that I really got a chance to work with a lot of producers, writing more songs and having just really, that was really the first time that I'd had any of my songs play in clubs and on the radio. And I had to go to London for a few shows and things like that. Wow. And when I was there, I had to shoot a video. I shot my video in America, in Seattle, actually. And when I was there, it was in rotation on MTV there. So I was just really like, oh my God, this is amazing, because I'd never had that happen. And I had been in the industry for a while at that point,
Yeah, so, that's amazing to see a video of yours on MTV. That had to be just like,
yeah. So that was great. It was a great point in my life. but then this is where I made the transition into kind of, well, not the transition, because I still was writing pop songs and dance songs, but that I had my girls at that point. I had children, and I had started writing these songs that I hadn't really finished. But at one point I had come back from London. I came back to LA, and my second daughter was maybe 7 months or whatever. And I'd already written maybe 10 to 12 children's songs, and I wanted to work on more. And so my mind just started spinning with these songs. And I found this producer who I started working with, Sandy Keela, who was amazing, because he just literally came in and just like anything I came up with or whatever, we just like explored it, So all these little explorations in the studio just kind of turned into these epic songs, because literally all I really had were hooks to begin with, and then they just turned into these like long epic things. So it's so funny.
So that's when you started writing. Like, is that when your career in children's like music began then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I just started writing, and then I was like, oh, I'm producing an album. Then I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And
right. Were you playing? Because I've seen like some of the stuff on YouTube you've done where you're like, it's like a full on show, right? You're talking to people and playing. But what I've interviewed a handful of artists in your genre, and what I vividly remember from a couple of those interviews is like Lori Berkner. I've interviewed her, and like Sharon Lois and Bram, and like they were saying like, they all had a similar story where it wasn't like they were like, I'm gonna write kids songs, like that's gonna be my career path. It's like everyone had these kind of stories where you land on this kind of niche market. And what I thought was interesting is like the shows, instead of playing at midnight or 10 p.m. on a Friday, Saturday night, it's like, all right, we're going to play Saturday at noon.
Right.
like what a cool time slot to have. I mean,
I know.
Did you get to do that stuff? Like, I mean, I would imagine,
God.
right?
When I was doing the club stuff specifically, sometimes my stage time wasn't until like midnight or like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, what is going on? You're like, what am I going to do to stay awake? No, I was a night owl anyway, so it wasn't that, but it was like just the fact that you're singing and performing
that late. I mean, you're waiting around. You're kind of like, okay, am I? It's 11 o'clock. I still have 3 hours until my
exactly.
Set.
Which was I didn't complain so much when I was single and I didn't have kids.
Sure.
But when here I am in London, and I took my girls with me too. So it was like one time, I had to hire a nanny when I got there, because I didn't have. I was staying with a friend. Oh, actually, my at the time, anyway, I was staying with a friend, and so I literally had to find someone to take care of my girls while I go do a show. And so I'm leaving to go at like 7 at night. I'm not getting back till like 3, 4 in the morning.
Right.
And of course, they're waking up at 6.
Oh, I know. I have 2 kids too. It'd be brutal.
Like, what am I doing? Right. Like, I'm like, so I'm not sleeping. So how am I supposed to be like this alert mom? And like, it was hard. It was really hard. So I was like, oh God.
Yeah. Landing in the kids world is huge, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your girls must have got a huge kick out of that. Like, oh, mom's performing and, putting on these things. And
yeah, they love it. They love it so much. It's so funny because they would go to my shows. They would, they'd have, it's like having a gigantic play date for them,
Right. For sure.
It's like this whole crowd of kids, and they're like dancing and things to play, streamers and instruments and they're at like kids concerts now are like real concerts. They're like little kindy rock concerts.
Right. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's so funny. It's really funny, but I think it's so good. I never knew about this growing up at all. It was all new to me. And the good thing I was just talking to someone yesterday about this, because the good thing about this whole thing with us being nominated for the Grammys and things like this is that, yes, I knew about artists like Lori Berkner and the Wiggles and Raffi, and I can name quite a few more, but I didn't really know a lot of ethnic children's artists. you know, and specifically Black artists that were
Yeah.
doing children's music and family music.
Mhm.
Not until maybe just a couple of 2-3 years ago that I discover that there's so many people that look like me doing what I do. I
Mhm.
had no clue, you know. So this is amazing, and the fact that this collaboration with the All One Tribe and the One Tribe Collective,
Yeah.
being nominated for a collaboration album in children's music, family music genre is just incredible. It really is, because I think it's going to bring awareness to not only the children that are, you know, looking at this and now being able to see people that look like them, you know, ethnic kids that are looking and they're like, oh wow, you know, but other artists that are Black or Hispanic or whatever
Mhm.
can look and go, oh wow, these people are like, there's more, you know, like I never knew that. So
Right.
I think it's just amazing, the representation that I think that this is going to start to help put in place.
Sure.
So
When did the
yeah,
project begin? Was this something that started fairly recently,
yeah.
or?
So it started. So 2 years ago, the year before last, my second Snooknuk album got submitted for the Grammys, and it didn't make it onto the final ballot.
Okay.
And of course, that brought about disappointment and so on and so forth. But what happened is that I got a chance to connect with a lot of different artists in that genre, because when you vote or when you are in this whole world, you listen to who's on the ballots, you know
Yeah,
what I
right,
mean?
right.
And you
'Cause
find
you
out these different artists.
Yeah, because you get to vote, right? I mean, not
Yeah, you
every
get to,
like, I can't just cast a vote for the Grammys. I mean, you have to
right.
be in there
You have to, exactly. You have to be a voting member, a Grammys
member,
member,
right?
in order to vote.
Yeah.
And in order to vote, you have to listen to these artists and songs that are the songs and the albums that are nominated. You know,
Mhm.
so I connected after that first the last year's Grammys, and connected with a lot of different artists, and really, I mean, and not just from LA, these are people all around the world, which is incredible, you know.
Mhm.
So we just started, you know, having like these Zoom meetings and, you know, things like Instagram lives and collaborating and so on and so forth. And then we just decided to do an album together.
Mhm.
And it was spearheaded by Aaron Nigel, who is this amazing teacher and educator and musician. He does a lot of
Uh-huh. I
reggaeton.
I interviewed him before. I know him
Oh,
very
did
well.
you? Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
She's
So he was,
he's awesome. He's really good.
yeah. He's the executive producer along with Amelia Robinson from New York.
Oh,
Her
awesome.
yeah. So they were the main producers, and then they just brought us all together and was like, hey, let's put together this album. And a lot of the artists that are on this album really came with messages, positive reinforcements, just a lot of different subjects that were really great for children in general,
Mhm.
but more specifically kids of color,
Mhm.
and those type of topics. And it's just amazing. Like my song on the album is called "We're All the Same," and it's about, you know, being everyone having all of their differences and being from different backgrounds and cultures and having different hair and color and eyes and everything. But we're all the same. If we work together, we're on this planet Earth. We can work together and make it work. You know,
Mhm.
and that's the messaging that I love about this album. It's all positive. Social awareness is fantastic.
I love that. That's such a great message too. And I know, and I don't know if you even feel like touching on this, but I think it was last year's Grammys. There was a big controversy in the
Yeah.
children's music category, and artists were
Hmm.
pulling out of it and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. We had, what was it? We had three artists that
That
reneged,
pulled,
basically.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They decided they weren't going to accept the nomination. Well, basically, you know, this genre was heavily dominated by male artists, and more specifically white male artists.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and a lot of, you know, folk music as well. There
Hmm.
was not a lot of diversity in this category. And so, you know, when you were looking at the different nominations over the years, it was a lot of the same names popping up and this and that. And actually not
Right.
a lot of women either, you know, like, well, I did say male dominated. So,
Hmm.
you know, it was just that it was just a year where I think everybody was just kind of feeling like everybody needed to speak out, right? I mean, last year was the year of like, okay, we are not taking this any across the board.
Let's put our foot
right?
down here.
Like, there was a lot of that. So yeah, I mean, there's this organization called Family Music Forward, and they were instrumental in putting us all together, everybody in this genre who had a voice and who wanted to speak out. And I was one of those people actually to put out a press release and speak against this category not having a lot of diversity and not really showing enough representation in it. So it was a huge thing. And also a lot of people don't know that the Grammys, for the final ballot, there was always a group of people or a private group that would finalize who would be on the final ballot.
Oh, really? So it wasn't just like, okay, this person got the most votes?
No, for the first round, yes. But then
you would think
not for that final round. Exactly. It was up to this committee. So this is actually
that's a bit shady.
Exactly. So the thing is that after we had spoken out and a lot of people really wrote letters and really was vocal about it, this was the first year actually where the committee does not exist. And it is all peer voting, you know, so it's all voting throughout every stage, which is amazing.
I didn't know that. That's, I mean, wow. I didn't know that there was a committee that was voting on the very end either. So, wow, that's awesome. Because now everybody has a level playing field, right?
Exactly.
I mean, say I was on the committee and you know, my band was playing with you at one point in time, and you know, I didn't get to play, or you know, there could be some weird, stupid,
you just don't
bias,
know.
And then it's like, well, she's not going to win because I have a grudge.
Yeah, I mean, it was supposedly that, you know, I mean, they explained or tried to say how it worked, but you still, at the end of the day, who knows?
Right. That's not exactly.
You know,
it's not a democratic vote at all, right? It's just
we
like,
don't know. So.
It's just, you don't know. You
don't know.
The numbers are like, you know, cut and dry. It's just like, here's this. You got this many votes, and this person got this many votes.
Yes.
So this person wins.
Exactly.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So this marks the first year that this has been just pure voting, which is amazing. And I'm happy to have had a part in that, which is incredible.
Really exciting. Are you going to be at the Grammys then?
I am.
It's in Vegas, right?
Yes, it's in Vegas. I mean, I'm a little bummed that it's not going to be in LA because, you know, all the events leading up to the day is not going to really happen necessarily.
Yeah. It's weird that they moved it. I mean, I guess that they said because of COVID, but it's like you just had the Super Bowl in Los Angeles. Let's be real.
Yeah. But the thing is that they didn't want to chance it having it in LA because things could close down or change at any minute.
Any moment.
Vegas keeps their regulations. They don't just change, you know, it's not like flip flop like LA.
They just know that it's going to be, this is going to to be, you know, no change.
They know it's going to air. They know, so they just wanted to be sure. So that's why I'm like, okay, if that gets it to happen live, then I'm all for it, because I was actually going to be depressed if my first year nominated and there's no ceremony. I'm like, oh God.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, especially the people that had that experience probably the last couple of years. It's like, we are nominated, but you get to win via the Zoom.
Right.
Like, fun.
From your bedroom.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm glad you get to actually attend and everything. That's great.
This is going to be incredible because we're all going to be there. And I think we're trying to put together a showcase too. So I'm excited. And then, you know, like I've never met Aaron.
Oh, really?
You know what I mean? Like we've never met each other like in person. So this is going to be incredible. All of us coming to one place and actually physically being in the same room with each other. After working together for over a year, basically, because we started working together at the beginning of last year, you know? So this is going to be quite a moment.
So how did the record all kind of come together then? Like if you had your own song and there's other people that have their songs, did you produce your song out and then give it to whoever was putting the album together? Like how did that work?
Yeah. I mean, again, Aaron and Amelia were really the executive producer, putting it all together and like kind of organizing it. But we all made it happen in terms of like, okay, we just had meetings. Like, maybe bi-weekly meetings on Zoom. Everybody got on, talked about the type of topics they wanted to hear, the things they wanted to do, who's going to collaborate, who's playing this, who, we got to choose who we wanted to work with, who we, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also made sure that one of the songs, which is one of the signature songs on there, that we all got to sing together.
Oh, cool.
As well.
That is cool.
So yeah, I mean, it's amazing what you can do with technology nowadays. And, this is proof that, we've never met one another other than, Zoom virtually. And we put together this whole album, recorded together, all these sending people vocal files and this and that and instrument files. And it's crazy.
Now it's up for a Grammy.
And now it's up for a Grammy. I mean,
so cool.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So grateful.
Yeah, congratulations, Cheri. That's so awesome.
Thank you.
I really hope you win. That'd be so cool. And I appreciate you taking time out of your day to hang out with me and chat with me.
No, it was really fun. It was, I know we were like rambling on and on.
No, I love it. That's what the point of this is. I'd love to hear, I love your story. It's so amazing. And
thank you.
Like I said, it's so cool that you have the record up for a Grammy this year, and I hope you win.
Thank you.
I have one more quick question though. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Never. I mean, I'm telling you, I know everybody says it, and I looked at the screen too when they said it, and every time someone says, "Never quit, never give up on your dreams," and it sounds so cliche, because I would just be like, yeah, okay. It's easy for you to say because you're standing there and you're holding this trophy, or you're standing there and you've sold this many albums, you know. But honestly, I am a living proof that, like, I mean, it's been 20 something years since I've been in the industry that long. And I remember my mentor, Jimmy Douglas, who was Timbaland's mixer engineer, who I went to the Grammys twice, by the way, like years ago. I went one year with Timbaland them and the group and the whole thing. And the second time I went, I said, I'm not coming back here unless I'm invited. That's what I said. So the day I got the nomination, Jimmy calls me up and he's like, I remember you said you're not going back until you're invited, and now you're invited.
Wow.
Like, crazy. So I say to aspiring artists, and this is one of my sayings, and I'm going to say it over and over and over and over again: never get out of line before it's your turn. Bringing it backward.